Hey, I'm about to read an excerpt from my memoir, Unreformed, A Captivity Narrative, or How I Survived the Religious Right. It takes place at Escuela Caribe, a now defunct white evangelical reform school in the Dominican Republic, which also had a location at New Horizons Youth Ministries in Indiana. This excerpt is called Certificate of Affection, and it was in the Midwest Review. We sat by rank at church. Church was held on the lower patio. Since I was a new girl at our religious reform school and had been automatically demoted to 0 level, I had to sit an arm's length from my house father, the man in charge of the house where I now lived. He watched my every move. Olivia and Rachel sat next to me. Since they were also low rankers, we weren't supposed to acknowledge that each other existed, even when one of us spoke or got into another's way. But Olivia and I watched each other from the corners of our eyes whenever we thought we wouldn't get caught. The director conducted services from the podium. Behind him, mountains lush with pines and palms arced into the distance. The director had a broad smile, a ready laugh, a thick Kentucky accent, and a thicker beard. His blue eyes were hidden behind tinted frames. He was married to a former student who was at least a decade younger than him. He'd been a staff member during her time, something which I thought was strange, but also knew not to mention, given that the director was in charge and that all the house fathers, the men overseeing the 4 houses of my new school, reported to him. The director had a divinity degree from Kentucky's Ashbury Bible College, but before that, he'd been an emergency medical technician. Some Sundays, he told us about being an EMT, how he tried to save all those God-forsaken weaklings who ruined their lives with drugs and alcohol, how sometimes he had to scrape people's remains off the road. Some Sundays, he told us about how he drove his EMT buddies home from the bar after work. The director said that they were so weak that they had to annihilate themselves with drugs and alcohol to forget what they'd seen, a choice our director didn't make because he was strong. Some Sundays, the director told us about his sister who made poor choices, including marrying a husband who was worthless. He told good stories. I took notes. However, my first Sunday at church was like none other, because after the sermon, the director paused and told us we were now going to celebrate a special occasion. He called for my high ranker Kirsten and her boyfriend Ben to join him at the front. I turned to watch as they rose from their seat 3 rows behind us. It was a high ranker privilege to sit away from the house. Ben grasped Kirsten's hand as they stood. Since I was on 0 level, this was my first good look at him. Those of us on 0 level, like me, weren't supposed to look at members of the opposite sex. Minus his acne, Ben looked exactly like what I'd imagined. He and Kirsten were both conventionally attractive October blondes. They almost looked related. As they walked up the aisle, someone wolf whistled. Another person catcalled. My shoulders began creeping up towards my neck, but I focused on masking how I felt. The director asked for their house fathers to join them at the front. With each step that my house father took away from me, I breathed easier. He and Ben's house father stood on either side of their charges. Behind them, the Emerald Mountains stretched, puffy clouds floated, and the sky's blue. The director cleared his throat. As most of you know, he began, when a couple reaches 3rd level, they have the option of applying for a certificate of affection. Hearing the term, my stomach twisted. The director cleared his throat and explained that a certificate of affection granted couples, 3rd level and above, permission to kiss. My mouth gaped. I felt my house father looking at me and forced it closed. The director told us that even though any couple on 3rd level could apply for this certificate, it wasn't always granted. The couple had to be seriously committed to dating each other. The director showed us a certificate, explaining that it listed certain responsibilities. Kissing is only allowed when staff is present. Kissing cannot last more than 10 seconds. Kissing can be only on the lips, mouth closed. Hands must remain at shoulder level during a kiss. My stomach rolled as he spoke. I stared off into the mountains behind the director as I realized how the certificate echoed restrictions on dating taught by Bill Gothard and other right-wing fundamentalists, the kind of men that my father believed were true leaders, preachers who taught that men were animals who could not control their urges, who preached that women were to keep themselves pure for marriage, setting sexual boundaries in relationships, yet who also taught that women were to be submissive. My jaw, again, just dropped. I realized Olivia and my house father were looking at me, and again, I forced my mouth closed. The director asked the couple if they were prepared to abide by the certificate's guidelines, warning them that if these guidelines were violated, their certificate could be revoked. Kirsten and Ben nodded their heads. Kirsten's eyes sparkled with unshed tears. I wanted to roll mine, but focused on looking straight ahead. The director handed Kirsten a pen, which, after signing, she handed to Ben. Next, their house fathers added their signatures as witnesses. I bit my lip hard, willing the pain to focus me, shifting in my seat. And now comes the moment we've all been waiting for, the director announced. Drum roll, please. Catcalls rang out, feet stamped. Beside me, Olivia was smiling and clapping her hands. My eyes were saucers. "You may kiss," the director yelled. The whole crowd clapped and cheered, and even though I was disturbed, I joined in, smacking my palms together as Ben leaned over and my high-ranker pressed her lips to his briefly, then moved her face back. I stared, thinking of how there were only 40 students in the school, how dating someone at the school was almost like allowing your parents to choose your partner for you. Ben pulled Kirsten in closer, and their mouths met for an instant longer, his house father leading his housemates in a cheer. The sound was sickening, but I tried to keep my expression neutral. I'll never date anyone here. No one is choosing for me, I promised myself. And just telling myself that I had this choice made me feel a kind of freedom. And I sat there basking in that feeling, staring off into a future where even under captivity, I maintained a modicum of control. I kept staring past the fence surrounding the school, past the fields in the valley, far past the range of mountains, thinking again of that freedom, until I felt someone watching. I looked up and saw my house father standing at the front of the patio. His icy blue eyes met mine, scowling. I took a deep breath, even as I lowered my eyes. I made my face go blank. And thanks again for listening. Again, this is Unreformed, a captivity narrative. This excerpt was published most recently in the Midwest Review. Shout out to Jeff Snowberger and all the editors there, and to all of you. And please check my website, my newsletter, etc. to sign up to order Unreformed, which comes out in February 2027 from Vine Leaps Press. Have a good one. And keep fighting for the right thing.